Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of Haunting the Crypt. I'm one of your hosts, Sean, and my other host, my co-host, is my little brother, Todd. So I'm kind of lucky to be doing this with my brother, and we have a lot of experiences for you. So basically, I'll give you a quick rundown of what we're going to do on this podcast and what we're trying to accomplish. We're trying to accomplish the fact that there is strange things going on out in the world, and not the strange things that you hear on Facebook and the news and all that other stuff. We're talking more of the paranormal. We're talking more of the UFO, Bigfoot, ghost, Loch Ness monsters, and what, Todd?
Anything supernatural.
That's it. And the chupacabra.
Yes.
That's what I was going for. So,
or we could go with the Jersey Devil, too.
The Jersey Devil, which was our Facebook profile for a very long time. That is a really cool one. I think, a lot of people have covered that, but we can probably touch bases with that story because we have a very good friend. Well, I have a very good friend. His name's Dave, and he's kind of part of the group, but kind of not. He lives out in Wyoming, New Jersey native, and moved out there, I don't know how long ago, years ago, 10 years ago, maybe even longer, I don't even know. But anyways, he actually did some research on the Jersey Devil, and he's got he's got a couple cool stories that you don't find on the internet because they're personal stories that he was told and he encountered. So we'll try to get him to call in or send a message in or whatnot and tell his stories so we can hear those and enjoy those. So yeah, definitely Jersey Devil is definitely a very cool, crazy thing. And not to get off track too bad, which we already kind of are derailed, but it's all good. I'm really curious in the whole year of 1909 and 1967. Those 2 years, you'll notice, come up an awful lot in a lot of stories that you will hear on this podcast. You will hear stories of the airships of 1909 linked to UFOs, the first UFO actual sightings, and you will also hear of stories that come out of the 1967 era, which, if you don't know what those stories are, be prepared, because those are some of the most famous ones right there. I'm talking about Bigfoot, and the whole Patterson-Gimlin film was captured in 1967, okay? Now, along with Bigfoot, I'm talking about the 1967 incident at Shag Harbor in Nova Scotia. All right? Those two right there, and there's a few other ones out there too. We'll get into those, but those two right there, along with the 1909 airships and UFO sightings from back then, those 2 years, and even 1909 has some Jersey Devil sightings as well that made local newspapers and national news, I believe. Okay, and we're talking about the Jersey Devil is normally out of southern Jersey, but they saw him up in northern New Jersey. They saw him out in Pennsylvania, especially Philadelphia. And the Jersey Devil area, I think, is maybe an hour or two away from that whole section. So, that's just, it's just kind of fascinating to me of what was going on at that time in 1909 and 1967. Why do we have such big flaps of different paranormal activities going on? And I'm going to try to figure it out, and if anyone has any theories, feel free to let us know, because that would be amazing. So now that we're back on topic here, what we plan to do here is this first episode, you're going to hear of our personal stories of things that we've encountered so far. And pretty much future episodes are going to be kind of what do we discuss? We're going to have a more like story oriented, where we're going to pick a topic and talk about it and discuss it and kind of go from there. We would definitely love to hear other stories from viewers, or not viewers, but listeners. Emails. We have emails also. Facebook, all that stuff. But we're gonna try to make it very, I guess, listener friendly for everybody. We want basically everyone's input, and we hope everyone likes it and digs it as much as we like to talk about the stuff. So I think that's basically what we're trying to accomplish here. And everyone knows the Roswell case. Everyone knows that, front to back, sideways, up and down, whatever. Everyone knows that story. What we want is and we're going to talk about the stories that are lesser known haunts, lesser known UFO cases or Bigfoot sightings or Loch Ness Monster type things, Chupacabra type things, Mothman type things, whatever, anything under the sun that isn't like exploited by all these TV shows and stuff of that nature. And that's basically what we're trying to accomplish here. So, folks, we hope you really appreciate that and you'll really dig our podcast. So, that's basically enough from me for right now. But my name is Sean. I'm basically the I guess I'm gonna say I'm the head guy here. I have a lot of background in sound and audio engineering, and I'm gonna be the one editing all the podcasts together, and we're gonna do video also. We have a YouTube page, so we'll do definitely a YouTube version of the podcast as well, and it's only gonna get better. But I've been doing paranormal stuff for a little while now. I got a little group. We don't like to say we go out ghost hunting or UFO hunting or anything of that nature. But what we do is we go out and we do research on the subject. We're not to debunk anybody, but to raise questions. And those questions basically are, the normal stuff of, well, why is that way? Why did you see this? What was going on in your life that you saw this, ghost walk through that? How did that happen? That's basically what we do is we research the fact of the matter. We don't sit there and be like, oh, yep, there's ghost, or nope, there's no ghost. But we are not like a, shall we say, famous big-headed ghost hunter. And I'm sure probably all of you know who I'm talking about. For the future, I mean, he's probably a great guy, but I think he's just really full of himself and his muscles. So I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. And I'm just going to leave it right there, okay? I'm just going to leave it right there. So I'm going to turn it over to Todd. He can tell you a little bit about himself, and then we'll just jump right into our own personal stories. All right? So here's Todd.
Yeah, I'm Todd. I've been into the paranormal for a very, very long time. I remember taking out books in the library as a young kid with my brother and everything about Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot, you name it. We took it out of the library.
I don't think anyone else could have gotten the stuff because we had it out all the time.
Absolutely. I've always been a fan of kind of more intrigued by more spiritual stuff than, let's say, Bigfoot and UFOs, but that it was just what I was into, what I was more interested into researching. And, a lot of these shows out there kind of, I don't know, put a damper on even watching certain things anymore. So, with that being said, I'll go into my first story. I don't remember exactly the date, but I do remember it was a cold night. I had the windows down or up in my car, excuse me, and I was on my way back to Chameau from Ogdensburg, New York, um, which is about an hour and 15 minutes or so. And I'm driving down the Route 12, and, off to the corner, I see something out of the corner of my eye. And, I'm going at least 60, 61 down the road and everything. So, I can't say for sure what I seen, but what looked like to me was something standing on the side of the road that was probably a good 6 to 7 feet tall, and what looked like to me kind of like matted fur, or like it was wet. Maybe it was coming out of the water because the waterway is right there. I mean, the route just kind of follows the river, the St. Lawrence River, all the way down. So, um, you know, and the only thing that stood out to me was these glowing eyes. Now, they seemed red, but I don't know if it was because of the way my headlights were hitting it, or what. But that's about the only thing that stands out to me.
Now, let me ask you this. Now, had you known about the red lights or red eyes or anything of that nature with like Bigfoot stories before this? Or did you hear about those stories or learn about them after your sighting?
Some of them after, actually.
So
I
you
was
didn't.
talking to.
So you didn't know about like some of the sightings that are recorded or reported state that there was actually red eye shine or anything of that nature until after you had your sighting.
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify. So
I hadn't really researched the area or anything of any specific stories. Um, it wasn't until much after, actually, just recently, that you told me some of the stories and everything, and I was like, wow.
yeah, you talking about the A Bear Road story? Is that the one you're talking about with the red laser pointer eyes?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, that one came out of, and that's another one. I do believe that one actually might have happened maybe in the '60s or maybe in the '70s. I don't know. I have to look into that a little bit more. But for some reason, it's sticking out that might have been another 1967 incident also. But I'm not 100% sure on that. In case you guys don't know, the A Bear Road story basically is this. It's a really short, quick one. This guy that owned a golf course in Whitehall, New York, claims he saw back in the 60s a Bigfoot type creature on one of his greens, and he had laser eyes, red laser eyes. He was shooting a beam out of his eyes to the ground for whatever reason, and that's basically what he saw. So we're just going to go with that right there, right?
So they literally were like lasers coming out of his eyes.
The from what he described, yeah, there were literally laser beams coming out of this creature's eyes. So, and
That I've never heard of that before, but
yeah, just thinking logically, you can't shoot laser beams out your eyes.
no,
You
not
just
unless
can't do it.
not unless you had some type of technology to do it. But
No. Even then, I don't even think aliens could do it at this point, and they're much further along in technology than we are.
absolutely.
So, But yeah, the rest of the story basically is a group of teenagers went out, and you know what? Why don't we wait on to that story? We'll talk about that in a future episode. Why don't we hold up right there and we'll talk about that one because that one's a really cool story. If you haven't seen the documentary by Small Town Monsters on that, it's called The Beast of Whitehall. Definitely check it out, and that might be our next episode. I think that would be a cool starting point.
Okay.
So, yeah, so you're driving down the road, you saw this thing on the side of the road, and you're like, what the? And just kind of was like, what afterwards? You just keep driving? Like, were you like, oh my God, what did I just see? Or,
Actually, I called, well, when I could, because during that time, or during that area, it's a dead zone, so you really can't call anybody, depending on what service you had or have, because it's so close proximity to Canada, so it kind of bounces off, and it's just a complete dead zone.
yeah.
So when I could, I actually called the person that I had left their house and everything, and I was telling her what I had seen, and she's like, "No, no way," She was just kind of playing it off and everything. Well, I think it was about a week later or something. I was talking to one of my coworkers, and this coworker later on passed away, shortly after. But she was telling me a story of when her and a bunch of her friends went up into the hills and everything. And I don't know exactly where it was, but she told me that they went up there to party and everything. And their let's just say their party was cut short. They were hearing a bunch of noises and everything around the woods and everything, and it kind of freaked them out and everything. So it said she said they went and got in the car and everything, and they went to drive off, but supposedly this thing that came out of the woods had their car up, literally up in the air by the butt end, was not allowing them to leave.
And that's been reported in quite a few cases as well. People out camping or out doing night investigations, and they end up in their car, and the SN. I'm sorry, they're out in their car, and their backside gets picked up, and they can't go anywhere, and they're freaking out, and da 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 da, and that's definitely been reported in quite a few cases as well. So.
Yep. And she also said that this thing had red eyes.
Huh. Another red eye one, huh?
Yep. Not laser beam, not laser beams coming out of his eyes, just red eyes.
Right. So really quickly, I have a book called, and these are some of the other stories I was telling my brother Todd about. It's a book. It's by John Green, and if those of you who don't know who John Green is, I basically feel like he's one of the top guys that was actually looking into this stuff back in the 50s and 60s. He wrote quite a few books. I don't know how many to be exact, but everyone knows, Dr. Jeff Meldrum. Tom Green is not a doctor. Not Tom Green. John Green is not a doctor, but he has written quite a few books on the subject of Sasquatch and Bigfoot, and actually went out and started research and going out looking for Bigfoot when the first set of prints were actually found and coined. The term Bigfoot was coined in, I believe, 1955. So he's been on the scene for a very long time, but one of his books actually mentions the city that we live close to, which is a little city called Watertown, New York. And here's just a little excerpt out of the local newspaper on a subject that happened here. So it says, the Watertown Daily Times, August 2nd, 1977, refers to an incident in January of 1975 when Stephen Rich, Jerry Emerson, and a boy from Massachusetts say they saw a 5-foot animal at the edge of the woods on State Street Hill in Watertown, just walking and swinging his arms. The boys were interviewed by Milton LaSalle of Watertown, who also passed on to me some more recent reports. In January of 1976, he had talked to a Watertown man who told him that the preceding June, he and a friend had seen a very large hairy animal squatting on the shoulder of Route 3 near Saranac Lake at midnight. As their car came around a curve, it stood upright and walked into the bush. Mr. LaSalle also interviewed 2 boys in their late teens who said that on the early morning of August 11th, a few miles east of Watertown, they had twice seen a huge black hairy creature. They told them that they decided to try to stay up all night and were walking down Overlook Drive about 5 a.m. when they heard pounding noises and screams from a bushy area. The noises went on for about 15 minutes. Half an hour after that, they saw a huge black thing standing on the road about 2 blocks away. One of them yelled at the thing, and the thing ran off, upright. As it turned to run, they could see that it was covered with hair. After that, they went to a friend's house, and from his kitchen window, they saw it again, walking across an open field near where they had first heard the noises. They said it was about 8 feet high and had very wide shoulders and was heavily built. Okay? There's another one here that also states, okay, so this one is in Expo, which is pretty close by. Milton LaSalle had also passed on a secondhand story about a man from Expo, New York, who had told a friend that when he was coon hunting near Oxbow in the fall of 1976, he saw a 7-foot, very heavy, upright creature covered with dark brown hair run across a clearing in the light of a full moon. Then on August 2nd, 1977, the Watertown Daily Times reported that 2 pairs of railroad workers near Theresa, New York, had seen a large hairy animal standing on the right-of-way at a distance. The sighting took place June 27th and 28th and were not at the same place. In each case, after it walked into the bush, large human-shaped 5-toed footprints were found. Again, Milton LaSalle was on hand to investigate. So those are just some sightings that happened in the Watertown area, basically where we live or where we're from. Oxbow is, I've been to Oxbow a few times, and probably even more so not realizing it, because it literally is a no-light town, and if you blinked, you definitely did miss it.
I was going to say that.
It literally is. You don't even know you're going through a town until all of a sudden you hit a speed zone. It's like, oh, gotta slow down here. But yeah, it's definitely a very, very, very small town. And there's a lot of farming out there that way. So to see this creature out, I think the guy was coon hunting, right?
Yep.
You know, to see this creature out in a field is not, not out of the ordinary, basically, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. So those are some stories that, I found in that book I thought was very, very interesting just because it's from our area and stuff of that nature. So
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. I never knew that.
yeah, I mean, just you can only find so much stuff online about issues and incidences and stuff of that nature. It's just anybody can write anything online about anything. So, to find something online about a sighting, it's like, oh, you take it with a grain of salt. But to actually go to the place and actually interview the person and actually kind of get an understanding of what that person is talking about is a lot different of a story. I feel like it's more real than it is to read something off the internet, really, you know. Clearly, this Mr. LaSalle guy actually talked to these people, and it's how John Green got to write about it in a book, and that's how I found out about him. So it's kind of like one of those type deals where it's kind of like, this is really awesome, because these are feel like are actual stories that were told, and they're in a book. They're real to me, you know. So it's kind of hard to read somebody's sighting report off of, the BFRO and kind of feel like they're 100% truthful, because
Yeah,
it's just,
sometimes you got to watch out for them.
well, exactly. I feel like it's just nothing against any reporting center. I know there's the National UFO Reporting Center. I've actually reported on there an object that I saw, and it was never posted. So, and it still hasn't been posted, and that was over 2 weeks ago. Alrighty, so now that we had a Bigfoot story, I think I'll share a couple short UFO stories that I've seen, or I'll share a couple strange light anomalies that I've seen, and I guess maybe we'll jump into a ghost story or two. My sightings are from a few years ago, and just to be mindful, everyone, that we have a lot more stuff, a lot more stories that we're not going to be able to cram all in one episode. So we'll probably maybe do another episode like this in the future. But just to let everyone know. So one time, I was out for a walk. I worked nights a lot. I had a few night jobs, worked graveyard. So in order, in your 20s, you want to kind of maintain that. Nobody's up. Like, who cares? You maintain, a night schedule because, you're working long hours. So even on your nights off, you're staying up and sleeping all day and, stuff of that nature. That's what I did. So, when it comes to 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, there's not much open, especially in a small town. So the best thing I did, I was skinny. I was like 125 pounds soaking wet. So, but very physically fit for the most part. I went out walking at night. It was just something nice to do, especially on nice nights. Kind of clear my head, get the stress of work off me for a few days and just clear my head and have a good time. So I ended up on Golden Hill Elementary School's hill, they call it. It's this big hill that overlooked basically the onion fields, and you couldn't really see town because town was kind of blocked by the rest of the hill in like the northwest direction, I believe. And this took place in the village of Florida, and that's also in New York. But anyway, so what happened was I kind of was laying on my back, and I was looking up in the sky, and it was a clear night, nothing going on, no clouds, no nothing. I didn't really see too much air traffic that I recall. And but anyways, I ended up seeing like these 3 little lights. And I say little because they were little, but those 3 lights were in a triangle formation. And that triangle formation, if you took like a quarter and held it up, that triangle would be within the confines of that corner, all the edges of that quarter. So it basically was, in my opinion, it was way up there. It was probably in space. This thing was huge if I was seeing it. I heard no noise whatsoever coming off of it. That's how high up it was, okay? If it had any noises at all. Now, I've looked up, and so what happened was it went across the sky at a pretty high rate of speed. I kind of got sketched out a little bit, and I was like, no way, man. I'm not seeing this. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm the only one out walking the streets. I'm up in this hill, and there ain't nobody. It's pitch black here. I didn't carry a flashlight, because everything was lit up. It was in the village, within the village still. So, street lights and stuff like that. So I kind of got really sketched out and scared and kind of was like, psh, gone, So, I kind of got that feeling like even if something did happen, you know, there was nothing I could do. So whatever, let me just try to get out of the area as quick as I can. Um, so I saw that, and it was actually heading in the direction of Pine Bush, New York, which is the UFO headquarters, or actually the UFO hotspot of New York State and probably the East Coast. They have a lot of sightings there, and they actually, every year, they have a UFO festival, which I highly suggest checking it out because it's awesome. I think last year they had guest speaker Travis Walton from Fire in the Sky, who was abducted by aliens for a week. And his logging company or logging crew was out, and he got out of the truck when they saw this object in the sky out in a job site, and got out, got hit with a beam of whatever, thrown back from the craft, and the other guys took off. So, and they went back, and he was nowhere to be found. They found him. He came to a week later in some other town, miles away, and that basically was that story. So, anyways, the UFO festival in Pine Bush is really awesome to check out. They got a lot of kids stuff to do, a lot of great food, vendors, and stuff of that nature. So, if any listeners go to it, awesome. So that's that story, and I and it kind of reminds me of it being a triangle, going back to the 1980s sightings of the boomerang, the Hudson Valley boomerang is what they called it, and that lasted basically for like 5 years or so, and they basically wrote it off as these ultralights flying at night, doing something illegal. Obviously, who's going to come forward and say, "Oh, I'm doing something illegal," So I can't really trust that story, and that's one of those ones that you take with a grain of salt, So that was that story. And another one I had was with my buddy Mark. We were at the parking lot in Watertown. It was the Target parking lot off of Arsenal Street. And it's kind of like right on the edge of the town. It's like the Target parking lot is the very last shopping plaza before you go into darkness. It's like that is the very last. It's the last stop shop. You know what I'm saying? So, me and my buddy Mark met up for coffee. We were talking about paranormal stuff because that's another member of my research group that I belong to. And basically, I saw this white light. It wasn't stationary. It was moving slowly in the sky, and it was bright. And I was waiting for it to blink, and he was like kind of facing me. So I was facing Sackett's Harbor Way, which is west, and he was facing me. So his back was turned toward it. He kind of noticed I was not really paying attention to him, so he kind of stopped and turned around and saw it too, and was like, "Oh, all right." So I told him, I was like, "I'm just waiting for lights to start blinking on it." He's like, "Oh, yeah, me too." So we watched it, and basically, like, I would say probably about 2-3 seconds after he turned around and witnessed this white light with me, the thing just vanished. It just turned off. Like, there was nothing there. And it was moving in a southern direction from what I could tell. But yeah, it just shut off. It wasn't a shooting star, I know that. And the first sighting, people say, "Oh, a satellite," or, the International Space Station. Well, if you've seen those, you know that satellites are like a star, and it's one single light source. The International Space Station, I've seen, and that's one bright light in the sky, but it doesn't just shut off. So, you can kind of take it with a grain of salt also. So, those are just a couple stories that I've had with UFOs and stuff. So, or weird light anomalies, I guess I can say. Because I didn't see any structures on either one. But I know I definitely saw what I saw. So, that's what I have for you on UFO side. So, Todd, why don't you tell us one of my favorite, or my two favorite ghost stories?
Okay. So one fall I was doing some work on my grandmother's property, in Watertown and everything prior to her selling it. It's a old brick building, and I was just painting the bricks and everything, and uh, doing a little bit of inside work here and there on the cabinets and everything. And so I had gone inside to eat my lunch, and my grandmother had to go to the hardware store to pick up some more hardware and stuff. And I'm sitting there eating my lunch, and all of a sudden, I hear this really graspy voice. Hey, you. And I'm looking around and everything. And now, mind you, it's kind of chilly out. All the windows are closed and everything, so it's no outside interference or anything. Kind of made me teary because our grandfather had passed away prior to this happening. Probably, let's see here. This happened probably about 2004 or 5, and Grandpa passed away in 99, I think it was.
Yeah, I think it was 99.
So it was a little ways and everything, but I know it was him. I know his voice. So I went outside and everything, took my lunch outside and finished eating outside and waited till my grandmother got home. And she asked me, why I was standing outside. So I told her what had happened and everything, and she goes, well, she's like, I got a story for you. So she goes, those little Giggles dolls, right? The one that Ryan always used to play with, which is my cousin's youngest child. And I was like, yeah. She goes, well, she's like, I walked into the living room because I heard something, rustling through the toy pile and everything. And she goes, I got closer and closer, and all of a sudden it stopped. But then I'm standing there, and all of a sudden this Giggles doll just comes up from the bottom of the pile and flew across the room.
No way.
When she told me that, I just about crap bricks.
I'd really love to get Grandma to tell us that story because I think that would be like the most awesome story to hear from Grandma.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
Yep, definitely.
Maybe I'll head over there and have her see if she'll record it for me. Let me record her telling me the story and stuff. Because I know she's got quite a few other stories. She's, folks, she's up there in age, and we love our grandmother. She's 93 years old. Still very, very, very independent. Wants to do everything. She still cooks Thanksgiving dinner. She did last year, and Christmas dinner also. Well, Thanksgiving dinner, I know she did. Christmas dinner, I think they just did the lasagna. But she's getting to be where she can't really do a lot of things. She got dementia. So, people that know what that disease is like, know what we deal with as a family, But anyways, yeah, we just love our grandmother to death, I really hope nothing bad happens to her anytime soon. As much as I hate to be selfish, I love my grandma.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Don't you have a second one that kind of goes off of that one?
Yeah. So, after our grandfather passed away and everything, our cousin Larry had his ashes. He was gonna scatter them on the ball field there in Watertown and everything, and it was I believe it was about wintertime. And now, mind you, our grandfather passed away shortly before Halloween.
Yeah, it was in October sometime. I can't remember the exact date, but I know it was in October
I know
before
we
Halloween.
spent the Halloween at Grandma's house. I remember that. So it was really close.
Yeah.
I think we had his wake, it was, what was it? I don't think it was Halloween night. It might have been the night before. But besides the point. So our cousin had him in the back of his car.
The ashes,
Yeah.
that is. Not
Yeah.
not him himself in the back of his car. The ashes.
The urn. Yep, the urn. And my cousin's friend went to go down to the cellar and everything in his house and everything, and comes running back up. He goes, Larry? He's like, do you have your grandfather in your car? He goes, yeah. And he goes, well, he's downstairs and he wants to be let in because it's cold. And Larry was speechless.
I love that one.
Larry was speechless.
I love that one, man. See, the way Larry tells me, he told me that like a few weeks ago. We went out to dinner and stuff, and he told me that story. So I got to hear firsthand from him, and it was slightly different. Again, maybe I should see if he'll let me record him telling the story and play it for you guys, because again, you know, there's nothing like hearing firsthand experiences, firsthand stories and stuff. You know, it's just great because you can actually hear the person's voice who's
Right.
telling you the story. You know. So maybe I'll see if I can't do that sometime.
That's why I like the documentary type stories. Like, what was there's a series, I think it's called My Ghost Stories or something like that. You know, it's that person's actual story from their words.
Yeah, but even then, you know, like, you know, you got to kind of take it with a grain of salt, because it's like at that point, you know, also how much other stuff are they adding in to
Right.
get ratings up?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You know, and again, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. I used to love Ghost Adventures. I really did. And I really kind of felt that what they were doing was legit, but then it's like every time they go to a location, they always capture EVPs, and when they play them, they're like, "Oh, did you hear that? It says this," and you're like, "All I heard was that's all I heard. I didn't hear no get out of here, or else I'll, you know, scream at you or something like that. Throw this brick at you." You know, I didn't hear that.
Right.
You know, but even then, when they classify, oh, we got a Class A EVP, and you're like, dude, that's like nothing. I don't hear nothing there. You know, but you know, still the bottom line is with Ghost Adventures, what I did like about the show, or what I do like about the show, I should say, I watch it every once in a blue moon, which is very rarely now, but I like the very beginning part of it, when they go to the location and they kind of get the stories of what's going on and the history of the location. That's the part that I feel is real. Okay? And then when they do their lockdown, it's just so watered down with everything and trying to get like all these, you know, EVPs and photographs and all this other stuff that it's just over the top. You know, that's just my personal feeling on it.
Well, not only that, but everything's all demonic. And that's
Yeah, and then that's
Yep.
another thing. Everything, oh, it's demonic. Oh, it's demonic. So I woke up to, like I said, I'm in this paranormal research group, and I ended up becoming friends with this other paranormal group on Facebook, and it's called the Northern New York Paranormal, which is kind of funny because my buddy Mark has a website called the Northern New York Paranormal, and I'm like, dude, like, you didn't tell me you had a Facebook page, and he's like, I don't. Like, Mark's just not a Facebook type guy, you know? So I was telling him about it. He's like, oh, no way. Well, anyways, I ended up contacting the guy, like, saying, hey, you know, you want to meet up sometime? Love to talk, you know? And he was like, yeah. So we ended up meeting up for coffee one night, and Mark came out with me, and this is the same. We went to Panera Bread, the same place where we had the single light anomaly there. in the parking lot at Target there. Different night though, and come to find out that this guy Mike, who runs the Northern New York Paranormal Ghost Hunting Group, is like a cousin or distant cousin of Mark, which is kind of random, you know? So it's kind of cool, but kind of random that they both chose Northern New York Paranormal. So it's kind of funny, but kind of random, you know? Anyways, so I woke up to a message from him one morning, and this is like probably a month ago by now. And he basically said, like, hey, what do you think about, joining forces and going on this ghost hunt with me? Going to do an investigation. And I was like, oh, cool. I'm down. Let me talk to my buddy Mark. Let me talk to Mark and see what he wants to do. And this is basically the text I woke up to. There's a lady on Fort Drum having problems with a demon. Anything you guys are interested in? Okay, that's his message. That's his direct message with me. And I was like, well, let me check with Mark. We might be interested. Because I didn't want to be like, yeah, I'm definitely interested. And not have Mark there because, Mark and I are buddies, But anyways, I basically started reading, or he sent me over the message of what happened. And this is the story that she says, or she claims happened. This is her word, so we'll go with that. I don't know the woman's name at all. I don't know where she lives exactly. It's all. This is all the information I have, and all the information that I'm willing to release. So it goes as followed. Well, this all happened last night, and this is what I sent to my mom. Other than this, I feel like I'm constantly being watched, and I'll hear bangs and knocks and what sounds like footsteps. Last night was the worst, though. Okay, so I was getting ready to go out to the gym, and I heard like men whispering, and I thought I left my TV unpaused, so I ran and opened the bedroom door, and it wasn't so. It wasn't. So I went back into the bathroom and started getting ready again. And then I heard a woman's voice. I thought it could be my neighbors, but I can't hear them. I thought it could be my neighbors, but I can't hear them ever. But then I heard a whisper in my ear, and it freaked me out. So I went to listen to my living room, and I heard like a demonic crackling, and it sounded and it scared me to death. So I ran to my bedroom and shut the door. Then I heard banging coming from my kitchen, and I went to the check, and I heard laughing and a demonic growl. I've been hearing footsteps and stuff in the attic for a while. Nothing was running or on in the house. I saged the other day, and I think it made it mad. I can't go to the attic, so I can't sage that. Or I can't get to the attic, so I didn't sage that. Then when I was going back to get my gym bag, Cheyenne was in my car and heard and felt breathing in her ear and down her neck, and no one was in the car but her, and it was off with the windows up. Mm-hmm. Okay? So that's the story she sent over to us, or to him. And again, we're not calling her a liar or anything of that nature. We just kind of wanted to go and interview her, investigate a little bit. Like, this is the way we do it. Basically what we're looking for is the consistency of the story. How many times does it change? That's what we wanted to interview her for. Because we have this. Now, if her story changes, something's up.
Right.
Just like any police department would do. You changed your story like 5 times so far in 3 investigation or 3 interrogations. So it was like, basically we're like, yeah, we're definitely on board. See what happens. So it was like almost a week later, because that message was on February 12th. Basically, we were trying to get everything squared away, and then on February 18th, I didn't hear anything, so I messaged Mike from the group, who asked us to come in if we were interested. And I was like, hey, any new developments? Just wanted to check in with you. And this is his response. She contacted me this morning and said she had a priest go through and bleed the house. Said no more activity so far. And that was it. It's the last we heard. So, again, I don't know how much I believe on that. I mean, normally if you're having demonic problems, a priest coming in and quote-unquote bleeding the house, I think they basically meant blessing the house. If it's demonic, you're not going to get rid of a demonic spirit just by blessing it. And that has to go through, like, demonic stuff, I think goes through the Catholic Church. So, yeah. So, it's kind of one of those type things. You take the story with a grain of salt. She could be telling the truth, but I doubt it was. Because, honestly, a lot of the buildings on Fort Drum itself are new buildings. You're not going to have... and they're in new parts of the base too. They're not in like places where, old barracks were. Nothing bad happened on Fort Drum, at least that I am aware of, and stuff. So I mean, I don't think it was anything bad, like soldiers all like died in a horrible crash or explosion, and now they haunt this area on Fort Drum. Like, I don't think that was it. I guess we'll maybe wrap it up now. Signing off our very first episode from the crypt itself in northern New York. This is Sean, along with my brother, Todd. Have a good night, everyone. This episode was recorded and edited by me, Sean, at Attic Records. Reach out to us if you need help recording, editing, or mastering your songs, commercials, or podcasts. We're here to help you. Contact for more information.